So one of the most important but difficult aspects of academic writing is decision making. This is important because you can't finish anything without making decisions, and it's difficult because you have so much choice in terms of what to include, what to leave out, how much detail to give, who to cite, what opinions or observations to give, how to order the information, and all of that is before we even get to the subtle choices of language and expression and style. And the fact that so much rests on writing in terms of publications or your PhD thesis and the potential consequences this might have for the next steps in your career adds an extra level of stress, which in turn can make decision making even harder. And this is one of the main causes of writer's block, which is often mistaken for perfectionism, which is then used to justify avoiding decision making by just writing whatever comes to mind. And while this lets you avoid the problem, at least in the short term, it doesn't solve it. And in fact, it probably makes things worse by training the habit of avoiding difficult decisions and by saving all of the difficult decisions for the end when you'll be under even more pressure. And this is one of the reasons why so many students struggle to finish and suffer unnecessarily as a result. I very often speak to students in this situation who've followed all of the standard advice. They've worked really hard, they've written tens of thousands of words, but nothing is actually finished. And the only way out of this situation, and the only way to start finishing sections or chapters, is to make clear and confident decisions. And what you find is that making one decision tends to make subsequent decisions easier because the objectives are clearer and the options are reduced. As for how you make these decisions, well, it's complicated, but there are some guiding principles and skills you can learn, which I go into elsewhere, and I'll put a couple of links in the description below. But in this video, I just want to emphasize that you cannot avoid making decisions. You might be afraid of making the wrong decision, but the only decision that's always wrong 100% of the time is to make no decision at all, or to delay any decision making until you absolutely have to, because that always limits what you're able to do and removes any control that you could potentially have over the situation. And this makes the very thing that you're afraid of, i.e. failure or just submitting a thesis that isn't very good, much more likely. Now, if you are extremely anxious about making decisions, if it gives you panic attacks, then it's probably worth speaking to a therapist. But otherwise, just try summoning the confidence to take a few risks. And the earlier you start doing this, the earlier you start making key decisions, the easier it will be. In part because there's less pressure, but also because it gives you time to change decisions if you have to. Now, I would love to finish there, but I know that somebody will raise the issue of using AI to help with this process. And you will hear others extolling the virtues of AI platforms and making it sound like they're these magical tools that everybody must use. But if you can't make key decisions, AI cannot solve this for you. Even if you trust it to correct your writing or to give you guidance or structure, which I personally wouldn't, you still need a clear, unambiguous input in order for it to have any chance of producing a decent output. Yes, you can put rubbish in and it will produce something that looks good on superficial reading, but it won't be your work. And this will be immediately obvious to any intelligent examiner, regardless of whether it passes AI detection. As I've said in other videos, AI can supplement your skills, but not replace them. And you should be very careful about what you trust it to do on your behalf. And you should never delegate thinking or decision making to it, because you have to be able to defend anything that you submit in your own name. And ultimately, it's your project. It's your work. You backed yourself to do a PhD. You believed in yourself. So have the confidence to make decisions for yourself.